Trojans by the NFL trade deadline? That is one of the funniest questions that I've heard anybody on sports talk radio ask. That was something that Jason Martin asked Robert Mays during their show right before we came on. We'll talk about college football. We'll be college football heavy certainly today and tomorrow until the Titans take the practice field, and then we'll get you ramped up to Seattle. We will spend some time on the Titans, though, because Mike Vrabel made a comment about Julio Jones at his press conference that the internet ran wild with that I think is completely ridiculous. And I'll tell you what's happening with that later on. But we got to start with last night's football game, don't we? My God, Monday Night Football was spectacular. It will be hard. Okay, so Thursday Night Football, really just a great weekend of football. Outside of the Titans and the Cardinals and the Packers and the Saints, but even then there were enjoyable elements about what Kyler Murray was doing and what Jameis Winston was able to do under Sean Payton for the first time, like truly under Sean Payton for the first time. But the opener between the Bucs and the Cowboys, and then last night to close out week one, I don't know if you could find a more enthralling start and finish to the 2021 week one of the NFL season. The Raiders and the Ravens in Vegas last night, 33-27, overtime walk-off win that I thought was over. I thought the game was done.
They blew it.
So did Lamar Jackson. He was out there dapping dudes up, getting ready to exchange jerseys. I was watching Peyton Manning and Eli Manning and with Ray Lewis and Charles Barkley and Russell Wilson on the Manning Brothers megacast instead of the conventional Monday Night Football broadcast. It made the experience miles better, by the way. And I think that Steve Levy and Louis Riddick do a great job. Who's the third man that I'm forgetting?
Brian Griese.
And I mean no disrespect by that. It's just that's how I'd rather watch a football game. You know what I'm saying? I know what the down and distance is. I can see that for myself. The television broadcast tells me that if I'm just looking around and know where to look for the down and distance and things of that nature and how much time is left in the game. Like, no offense to people who do what Lucas wants to do professionally, which is play-by-play, but I don't need all that. I need Peyton Manning, Eli Manning talking crap to one another and breaking down the game while basically feeling like I'm hanging out with them in my living room. But we'll talk about the Manning Brothers broadcast in just a second. I thought it was laughable, though, because it started off, I mean, really the first three quarters were kind of a slog. And then the fourth quarter, there's just points all over the place. People are scoring touchdowns left and right. Derek Carr looks like a completely different quarterback than he did for the better part of that game, because for a while, I saw smart football people that I know and follow on social media saying, wouldn't it be a good idea to try and get Marcus Mariota some reps here? I'm sitting there, what? Outside of, Nashville's internet exploding because Marcus Mariota went in for a play and looked good doing it, right? But we know what the larger sample size looks like. I don't need to live the Marcus Mariota starting quarterback experience again. Derek Carr ended up being certainly the better of those two quarterbacks for Vegas last night when given the full opportunity. I could not have enjoyed two things in the sport this weekend that really caught my attention and that really, made me appreciate the fact that life is better with football in our lives. There is nothing more fun in the NFL, and I would defy any of the callers, anybody who would interact with us on Zone TV, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitter. I would defy anybody else to name me something more fun in the NFL than Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes trailing in a game, because those two dudes are electric. Even if Lamar lost last night, those two fumbles were incredibly costly. Him throughout the course of the game, I thought was spectacular. It did not look like their running game suffered a great degree without J.K. Dobbins and without Gus Edwards, because they're running out there with Le'Veon Bell didn't play last night. I saw who's the backup for the Saints that got cut in his
Latavius Murray.
Latavius Murray had a good game, and then the rookie also had a good game. but I did not think that the Ravens suffered a great deal by all of the running back injuries that they have had. We will see how this thing fares throughout the course of the season. And of course, the AFC. I mean, the AFC is so much better than the NFC this year outside of two conferences. The NFC West looks great, and the NFC South, outside of the Falcons, looks great because those two divisions went 7-1 over the weekend. I was incredibly impressed with a lot in football. So what do we definitively know after 1 week in the NFL? 615-737-1045 is how you jump in on the conversation. 615-737-1045. What do you definitively know about the sport now that we've seen 1 full week of football? I think that there is, the more that I look at it, the more that I think about it, the more that I am intrigued by this Raiders team. The Raiders team, the Raiders staff, that is a big part of the reason that Todd Downing is now the offensive coordinator in Tennessee, because of the way that staff got fired under Jack Del Rio, because the owner wanted something bright and shiny, pulled John Gruden off of television, 10 years, $100 million, and now he's got a total record after last night of 20-29, hasn't made the playoffs since coming back to the Raiders. I think that there is so much potential there, though, if everything is right. 615-737-1045. I think that more than anything, though, I am fascinated to see how the AFC is gonna play out. Now, there's no real way to know what, who is going to be a playoff contender at this point. We know who should be good, we know who should be bad, and we know we know who is special, I guess, after the first week of football, because the Ravens, even in a loss, I thought looked special. The Chiefs, we know what they are. The Browns, even in a loss, I felt, outside of Baker choking, I felt as good about the Cleveland Browns as I have since they tried this whole super team thing in 2019. They look like a team that is capable of going to that same stadium that they opened their season in January and trying to knock off the Kansas City Chiefs. What do we definitively know about week 1 in the NFL? We're going to get into it on the other side. Lucas and I both have observations. You're going to hear from some parties involved, and we're also going to talk about Urban Meyer because that situation and that result was laugh out loud funny to me. All that and more coming up next. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Blaine and Mickey talk so much football that they've gotten inside their own heads.
What all is Mike Vrabel's aura comprised of? Maybe that's
aura?
Aura. Now it's funny. Aura. Now I don't even know how to say it.
Someone call in and help Mickey pronounce.
I'm in my own head now.
Blaine and Mickey, today from 1 to 3 on 104.5 The Zone.
1045. Don't forget, winners and losers from the weekend in football, both college and pro, will come your way momentarily as well. So we will take your submissions if you would like to get a head start on that. 615-737-1045. But like my experience with concerts is that I don't enjoy them the way that I used to. And like this, so this is one of my two old man opinions, okay? Because last night I got so pissed watching the Ravens and the Raiders, and this was just the culmination of all of the NFL this weekend because I saw Patrick Queen, their middle linebacker, wearing number 6, and it pissed me off because I hate that. I hate it so much. I didn't like it when he wore 45. Or was it 42 or 45? 45, I think, is Devin White on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Regardless, he's wearing number 6 now, and I hate it. I hate how it looks. I hate that Hollywood Brown is wearing number 5. I hate that Julio Jones is wearing number Z because it doesn't look like a 2 in the Titans font. That is my first old man opinion. But my second is that concerts aren't fun anymore because of the way that people just hold their phones up and take like Snapchats and videos for Instagram and like videos for TikTok and stuff like that. So the performer, the entertainer's trying to get the crowd into it, but everybody's just staring at their phone and recording the concert with like crappy, grainy Bigfoot footage from the lower bowl in row double D. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not a fun experience if the crowd isn't a part of the act. Because I remember I'm trying to think of the last show I saw at Bridgestone Arena. It's been a long time.
Yeah, those Bridgestone concerts is where that's the problem. Yeah, I hardly enjoy a show at Bridgestone unless it's someone like that I absolutely have to see, like John Mayer or something.
Yeah, no, I went to Sam Smith, right? So you talk about spiritual experience, my God. And I had great seats. I had great seats for the Sam Smith concert. And like he was talking to the audience. He was trying to get the audience into it. And instead, it's just a bunch of people shrieking and then holding their phones up to his face or as close to his face as humanly possible. Like, how is that a good way to enjoy a concert? Yeah, what do you get out of that?
That is not an intimate concert experience at Bridgestone. I like the intimate, like the Ryman, Live on the Green, RIP. Hopefully it comes back at some point. Like those type of intimate concert experiences, those are always the best. Bridgestone doesn't quite qualify.
Lebowski says in the Zone TV chat, and honestly, who is going back and watching concert footage from their phone? Not a single person. Yeah. Don't you dare lie to me and say that you're going back and like reminiscing on the good times with your buddies or your girlfriend or your boyfriend watching this terrible, grainy, 100 feet, 200 feet away concert footage.
I don't know. If a John Mayer solo pops up in my memories, I'm gonna give it a quick watch.
You're the worst.
You talk about a spiritual experience.
Yeah, but you can't hear it. Like, it's not like your iPhone audio quality is any good. It just sounds like a bunch of guitar. It's just him playing a bunch of guitar strings. Like, that can't be good.
John Mayer playing guitar strings tends to be very good.
You're wrong. Buckshot Carey on YouTube says, Buck misses the hippie days so bad. No, I want the Dave Chappelle experience, all right? So when the Titans played the Chargers in London a couple of years ago, I went to a Dave Chappelle, Jon Stewart show, okay, at the I think it was the Royal Albert Hall. Yeah, Royal Albert Hall in London. It was so cool, so much fun. There was, I think, probably 5 total comedians, and then Jon Stewart opened up for Dave Chappelle, all right? It's tough. I mean, there's a great ticket. We had like, they don't call it box seats in one of those concert halls, but you know what I mean. But before you walk in, you have to put your cell phone in one of these, like, it's not like a Ziploc bag, but it's one of these like little pouches that you can't open until as you're walking out of the venue, they like swipe it on some kind of like the things that they have on clothes at the department store so you don't steal anything. They have to swipe it on this little metal strap, and then the pouch becomes open again after you're leaving the theater. But they don't want any of this stuff on the record. They don't want any of it on social media. They're just trying to do a show, and they need the audience involved. So Dave Chappelle, if you go to one of his shows, and I know him and Joe Rogan were supposed to play Bridgestone, a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah.
Or was it last week?
I thought it was last Friday, maybe.
Well, either way, Joe Rogan got COVID and then was touting the fact that he was taking horse dewormer on Instagram after the fact. So I'm so thrilled to hear that Joe Rogan is okay, but also he appears to be a bit of a dunce. I just think that's such a better experience when everybody's not on their phone. And this, you're talking to somebody who averages, I think, 18 hours a day as far as screen time on their phone. And that's like on a light day. It's on a Tuesday when there's not Titans practice where I have to constantly have that thing glued to my head.
I will say Chris Stapleton in Bridgestone. I will be there for that in October.
Yeah, you've been talking about that for a while.
Marcus King Band is like most of the reason why I'm going to that show.
Not Chris Stapleton?
I do love Chris Stapleton, but he's going to be with Yola and Marcus King Band. And if anybody does not know those two artists, please go check them out.
Okay, fair enough. Well, why don't we play them some throughout the course of today's show? 615-737-1045. What do you definitively know about the NFL now that week 1 has concluded? 615-737-1045. We've gotten some tweets on this, and there's obviously people are saying that the Titans playing poorly in week 1 is what you definitively know, and that all of the things about the Titans kind of blowing it against the Cardinals, that's been a big joke that's being made in my Twitter mentions. But the one thing that I definitively know is that there are only a handful of teams who are going to be the ones that I'm going to have to go back and watch throughout the course of the regular season. Now, what I mean by that is on Sundays, I watch one game, right? We have I'm at the Titans game. The Titans game is on the televisions in the press box, so I'm watching the Titans game live. Then after the play, I'm looking up at the TV because it's on a 20-second delay, and I'm trying to catch the replay in real time so I can get the best analysis possible during the game. So any other NFL game, because I'll hang out in the press box afterwards, I'll write on whatever the Titans did, and then I'll get ready for my primetime show. I'm not seeing a ton of NFL football on Sundays. If I want to watch games, I'm going to go back and watch them on Game Pass. And there's like 4 or 5 teams that I'm going to go out of my way this year to make sure that I watch, maybe not on a weekly basis, but whose games I'm definitely highlighting. The Kansas City Chiefs, obviously. The Baltimore Ravens, obviously. All 4 of the NFC West teams, if I'm being completely transparent with you, because I thought the Seahawks on defense, more than anything, were spectacular. Thought the Niners looked great. The Rams were incredible. And then, of course, we saw what the Cardinals did. And I'm curious to see whether the Cardinals are actually like a sustainably good team this year and not just kind of a flash in the pan against a Titans team that got caught with their pants down. Those teams I'm going to seek out during the regular season to watch because I believe them to be special. Cleveland, I also think, is in this category because they looked, outside of choking at the end, they look like they can hang with Kansas City. And having that experience in week 1 is only going to benefit them should those two teams see each other again as they did in the postseason last year. I think there's only so many of those teams because I caught the highlights of Cincinnati, Minnesota, and there was nothing there that was any kind of appealing to me. The Indianapolis Colts, outside of watching them prior to the weeks that the Titans will play them, I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on the Colts. They don't look special to me. The Jags and the Texans, my God. We'll talk about Urban Meyer here in just a second, but I know that there are only so many teams that I'm going to have to go out of my way. Maybe 8 out of the 32 that I'm going to have to spend extra time watching throughout the course of the week when I can't watch their games on Sunday. I'd be curious to see whether the Titans can kind of push themselves into that category other than the team that I'm there paid to watch, because we're going to talk about it on the radio and on the A to Z Sports Primetime Show. 615-737-1045. What do you definitively know about the NFL after week 1? John is in Nashville. He wants to lead us off today. What's up, John?
Buck, how you doing, man? Big fan. Thank you for having me on. I actually know 2 things definitively, Buck. I'll be quick. Actually, 3 things, Buck. I know Cam Newton deserves to be starting somewhere. I know that it's trouble in Green Bay, and I know that Christian McCaffrey is the best running back in football, and the Vols are still trash.
Oh, just that's 3 off the dock. All right.
A little chuckle at the end. He couldn't get it out without.
Should we rack him? Should we rack him? Oh,
All right. No, I'm kidding, John.
No, you're not. You're bitter. You were so bitter yesterday talking about Tennessee. You were so bitter. And now you have John taking shots at your favorite team.
I do try to suppress it. Okay, I try.
Well, you did not do it well yesterday. You were spitting venom at Austin Burlage when we had him on to talk about the Vols against
No
Pitt.
venom was spat at Austin. I love Austin.
Not at Austin, but throughout the course of that interview when we're talking about, an offense that uses tight ends for once in their lives. 615.
Well, did you enjoy watching that offense last year?
Oh, hell no. Hell no. And I'm paid to now. Like, it's not just Sundays that I'm going to spend with the Titans. Now I'm keeping track of the Vols on a regular basis, and now I need them to look aesthetically fun because I cannot suffer through what I suffered last year with Jim Chaney and JG. I won't do it again.
Brother.
Yeah, no shit. Oh, I almost cussed. 615-737-1045. What do you
so close.
What do you definitively know about the NFL? Sorry, I got super comfortable. We're relaxed. We're having fun on a Tuesday. Week 1 in the books. You know what else I know? I know that the rookie quarterbacks, now there's 5 of them in the first round this year, right? And inevitably, a few of these guys are not going to have the kind of careers that everybody projects them to have. Between Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, and, of course, Trevor Lawrence with the first overall pick. What I know for damn sure, and we'll talk about this when we get to winners and losers of the sports weekend, of the football weekend, I am terrified that Jacksonville is going to ruin Trevor Lawrence. He looked awful on Sunday against a bad Houston Texans team. And I can't even say that they were all that bad because they played with a hell of a lot more cohesion. They looked a hell of a lot more comfortable with one another. And apparently, they don't hate their head coach the way that the Jags players do. Trevor Lawrence, I think he is a special kind of player. There is a reason that out of all of the super talented players or super talented quarterbacks in the first round, I would say to you that Trevor Lawrence has the ability to be the best among them, no question. But he is in a bad situation, a horrific situation. And the Jags, it seems a little more dire than it usually does because it sounds like the players already hate their head coach. We'll discuss Urban Meyer at greater length later in the show. 615-737-1045. What do you definitively know after week 1 in the NFL? Let's go to Alvin, who's in Nashville, wants to weigh in. What's up, Alvin?
Yeah, I wanted to know, do you think the Titans lost by protecting players or soft practices? And I just want to know your comment on that.
Sure. So it was interesting to listen to the Manning brothers last night, right? Because this was something that it was not a provoked response, but Peyton Manning was very, very
It was relevant.
It was relevant because of what the Titans are currently experiencing. So, one, I did think they played soft. I'm not questioning the toughness of anybody who plays that sport. It's a ridiculous thing. They're all insane people to do what they do for a living. I would never, ever, ever in a million years play football beyond high school because of what it does to your body and how terrifying it looks to be out there, nor would I wish it upon anybody else, but I love to watch it. So I was watching the Manning brothers last night, and Peyton is talking about practice time and preseason games and time spent with your wide receiver. And this is the quote. I wrote it down. I rewound it on DVR to make sure that I got it. Peyton Manning last night saying there's a reason for practice. That's why you want to practice. That's why you want all your receivers to be there. It's important. It matters. Did it not look like it mattered for the Tennessee Titans, the fact that the practice time has not been there? Mike Vrabel is going to handle these guys the way that he wants to handle these guys. No amount of bitching from Alvin or me or Lucas or anybody else on radio or Twitter or whatever. Nobody else is going to change the way that Vrabel approaches it. Unless it's Mike Vrabel or John Robinson's idea, it's probably not going to look any different. They're going to continue to manage the vets and continue to manage injured players the way that they do. This has been the MO, the modus operandi for the Mike Vrabel staff since coming here in 2018. I don't think it's changing just because they look like crap in week 1 of the 2021 season. But I will say to you that everybody else is talking about how much it matters And in fact, Lucas, we have that cut from Mike Vrabel yesterday, if I am not mistaken, about the offense's lack of time together. What I know, you know what I want to know, or what I do know out of week one? Exactly what Peyton Manning had to say last night on the broadcast. Practice time together matters, and sure as hell it did for the Tennessee Titans.
Nothing is dismissed. That's what it was. It wasn't, we practiced with the guys that were available and that we had and that we wanted to try to get work with and try to have a plan. It wasn't that we dismissed it or I dismissed it. It was, this is who we had. This is who was available for practice. This is the plan that we had. And, then we'll have to go out this week and make sure that whoever's ready for the game and those guys that we think are going to be contributors are ready to go.
So, because that was kind of the theme on social media, right? I saw people being like, "Oh, Mike Vrabel always has this holier than thou approach because he's bitchy sometimes in the press conferences with media." I don't really care about that. Like, that doesn't bother me as somebody who's in these press conferences on a regular basis, but it bothers fans, right? Because they want information, they want to know these things, and Mike Vrabel is not terribly forthcoming, especially when we've talked about this for weeks upon weeks, the better part of 2 months, basically since Julio got here, and the conversation. What did I tell him? What did I tell him about Julio Jones? What did I tell him about Julio Jones since I got traded here? I've said it so many times, I feel like I shouldn't have to say it anymore, so I'm going to make you say it for me. Julio does not practice. Famously does not practice. The last 2 seasons. So now it's becoming a point of contention between the fan base and the organization. What I know is that practice matters. And what I also know is that Julio Jones doesn't practice. 615-737-1045. Corey is in Hendersonville. He's got a week 1 observation. What's up, Corey?
Hey, Buck. All right, so 2 things that I know definitively for this season. The Atlanta Falcons are absolute trash.
Woo!
They couldn't do anything on offense in week 1 against Philadelphia. And I definitively know that Urban Meyer is going to pull a Bobby Petrino at some point this season. However, I'm going to say that he's going to do it quicker than Bobby Petrino did.
What's the timeline for Bobby Petrino, Lucas? Can you look that up for me? Like, how long did Bobby Petrino last with the Falcons? Because I know that was a thing, and I don't remember it top of mind. Like, that was not when I was paying that close attention to the NFL. I mean, I don't even remember what year that was, but I know that it was a brief experience and that it caused a lot of people a lot of strife, and Bobby Petrino has done that.
13 games.
13 games is what he made it.
Yeah, and he left in the dead of the night.
So, what year?
07. He spent the 07 season in Atlanta.
Okay, how old were you in 07?
I was in 6th grade.
So I would have been in 8th grade,
yes.
2007. Yeah, so, but I wasn't really paying attention to coaching movements and Bobby Petrino leaving in the dead of the night to escape Atlanta and the pissed off Falcons fans. What a godforsaken franchise, by the way. And I honestly don't know if the Eagles are that good or if Jalen Hurts is that good or if just the Falcons defense is that bad. Poor Arthur, man. Poor Arthur Smith. Welcome to the big chair, big guy.
A lot of work to do.
Woo! That was bad. But I will say to you that the Urban Meyer experience is something that's going to be fascinating because USC fired Clay Helton yesterday. Finally. It feels like they've been on the doorstep of that for 4 years? So does Urban Meyer, does he have anything to do with it, is my question. Because at least you think that USC would not make this move without somebody in mind, right? You would have to imagine that there is more, and maybe not. A lot of these collegiate athletic administrators may look like they have a plan and may be paid like they should have a plan, but don't actually have a plan. See, all of the conference commissioners outside of the SEC once COVID hit college football last year because nobody had a plan and everybody was just figuring it out for themselves and doing it poorly. But I would imagine that USC has to have some kind of a plan in place. And I'm curious to know whether Urban Meyer has anything to do with that plan. We'll talk about it. Winners and losers of the football weekend coming up next. As you may well know, Urban Meyer has a role to play in our weekly segment. If you want to get involved, you may do so. 615-737-1045. I'm Buck Reising. This is 1045 The Zone.
It's a college football Saturday doubleheader. First kicking off at 11, it's the Vols hosting Tennessee Tech. Then at 6, Georgia clashes with South Carolina in an SEC Saturday night showdown. Coverage starts Saturday morning at 9:30 on your home for the Vols and SEC football. 104.5 The Zone.
Winners and losers of the football weekend. Where to begin? Lucas, I feel like you haven't been allowed to talk basically since last Thursday. Because of football and reaction and callers and you slaving over. You had to take a bathroom break at one point yesterday. So much so that I screened a call from the studio just to allow you to go and relieve yourself and take a break from the phone lines. Like I felt like it's the first time I felt bad for you.
I was proud of you for that.
What?
For screening the call. I can't believe you did that.
What do you mean? I used to do that.
I know. I was just surprised. I came in and I saw it was on hold. There was no name because you can't type over there. I was like, you screened this? And you look so proud of yourself. Like, yep.
I mean, I haven't done it in a long time. I was just happy that I didn't accidentally put the guy on air during a commercial break and he's just sitting there wandering around listening to me tell him about DraftKings Sportsbook. But yes, we did manage to do that. So why don't you lead us off in the winners and losers of the football weekend? And, of course, if the audience would like to nominate some foolishness, you can do that as well. 615-737-1045. The people have already chimed in or started to chime in on Twitter because we did this yesterday thinking that we were going to have time to it, and that was foolish because the Titans blew it. And that was the bulk of our conversation for basically all 3 hours. But instead, we will do it on Tuesdays because of Monday Night Football, and we will let Lucas Panzica begin the proceedings.
Let's start with my winner of the weekend.
Okay.
Well, I just think we were prepared. You know, one thing my trainer, he told me, he said, what did he say? He just be prepared. He said, pressure is for the unprepared. So you let me know, man, we were prepared. I told the guys, I related to them. I said, hey, pressure is for the unprepared.
He said, what did he say? He just said to be prepared. But Jameis Winston, he did remember the quote, said pressures for the unprepared, but he is my winner because 5 touchdown passes in less than 150 yards passing in a blowout of the Green Bay Packers. Drew Brees said on the NBC broadcast, I guess this is what the Saints have been missing, a guy who can actually throw downfield. But not only did he throw 5 TD passes, he did it in less than 150 yards, and he delivered us a classic Jameis quote after a blowout of the Packers. Jameis Winston is my winner of the week.
It was the perfect performance. Not the 148 yards, not the 5 touchdowns, not the 92.5 quarterback rating, but the quote on top of it all, chef's kiss. More of Jameis Winston post-game interviews after wins, more of him eating a W, more of it all. You know what was weird? I'll go ahead and give a loser of the football weekend just to pivot off of this one. It's not mine because I want to save that for the audio that we have collected. But RG3, did you see what and listen, RG3 is, full disclosure, RG3 is represented by the same talent agency that I am. I'm pretty sure we have the same agent, so I don't want to rip RG3 and not say that out on the front end. Just know that it comes from a place of genuine curiosity. What the hell was he doing on Twitter? Did you see him during that game?
Yeah.
Did you follow any of that?
He was trying to create memes. I don't know. That was interesting.
No, he did have memes, but he wouldn't let it go. So I was scrolling through it and he started going back and forth with people on social media about this in a way that I couldn't understand because he tweeted initially, this was during the Saints and Packers game, after beating Aaron Rodgers, this is from RG3's Twitter account, after beating Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, Jameis Winston is now requesting strategy meetings with the Saints brass and demanding 5 crab legs, one for every touchdown he threw, to be placed in his locker every day for consumption since he ate a W. Okay, so there's that. And one tweet, fine, because it's got the Jameis, it's the national championship trophy from the Florida State year has been removed from the meme. Instead, he's holding a rack of crab legs, which in and of itself is funny just because Jameis Winston's face, he is very expressive, which we all appreciate. But then RG3 goes back to the crab leg with another tweet about it, saying, and I'll pull the tweet up to be specific because he was trying to defend himself on social media. He comes back and says, can you see how Jameis Winston is proving the doubters wrong and playing lights out? Makes the fact that when he gets paid, he will be accused of stealing money that was earned and given to him, just like he was accused of stealing crab legs that were given to him because of his play at Florida State. What is RG3 doing on social media?
What is it with the crab legs?
It just keeps going, but he's playing the hits. He's playing the hits, except the hits are 6 years old at this point. RG3 was a sore loser. I don't know if he was trying to be funny. I don't know if he just thought, yeah, you guys aren't getting my joke, but he got ratioed twice.
I haven't seen anybody bring up the crab legs about Jameis Winston in a long time. Like, there's been so many more funny things that he has done since then.
No, it's been...
Now, stealing crab legs ranks at the top of the funniest things an athlete has ever done.
It's
ever.
up there. I mean, it's up there. But like, this is again, it's 7 years ago at this point. Which
Yeah,
also,
like all the interceptions, the videos of him dancing, him immediately forgetting what his trainer told him after referencing what his trainer told him. I mean, there's so many things in between.
615-737-1045 if you would like to nominate a winner or a loser of the football weekend. The chat on Zone TV has been there have been many nominations for Taylor Lewan. Buckshot Carey says gotta be Green Bay. Our guy, where did it go? Tomahawk Chop says Taylor Lewan is the nominee for the biggest loser of week one, hoping he recovers from this. So at least there's a little bit of nice on the back end, I guess. All right, Lucas, who lost the football weekend?
The Texas Longhorns.
No.
They got blasted at Arkansas. They're already making a change at quarterback after going with freshman Hudson Card for the first couple of games. Do they go crawling back to the Big 12 and say, we're sorry?
They should. Sam Pittman put it on them. Like, Sam Pittman in Arkansas just ran them, and it was so funny to watch. I don't root against Steve Sarkisian. I don't root necessarily against Texas. I have no ill will towards Texas, but, like, the fact that they continue to be this program. In fact, Lucas, can I ask you a favor? And maybe we'll do this during the commercial break. Maybe this is how we'll lead into Felder with it. But there's a clip of their athletic director being asked by a reporter about their athletic department budget, basically, and she goes into this whole spiel about what they're spending on athletics and how, okay, maybe their fan base would rather lose to Alabama instead of TCU. It's one of the funniest things I've ever heard. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a second. We'll lead into Michael Felder of Stadium, who will join us at 11:20 to talk about the weekend in college football, because that wasn't the only upset of the weekend. My God, what happened at Ohio State, what Oregon did to them, and their defense just wretched, and probably what was the biggest upset of the college football weekend. We'll do that here in just a second, but for me, should I start with the good or should I start with the bad? I think that the good, well, why don't we start with the bad? Because the bad is funny, and the bad is in the division. The bad is in the AFC South. The bad is in Jacksonville with Urban Meyer. This was him after his just demoralizing defeat at the hand of the mismatched, misfit toys Houston Texans.
Yeah, it's when you're playing, I always tell people, I've always told teams that when talent becomes equated, it's the margin of error is there is no margin for error. You're sitting there driving the ball. It's I want to say it's 14-7, and we get a 13-yard run, and the back judge throws a flag in there that we get a holding penalty. It goes back to 1st and 20, and then I just watched it. We went through it again. I was watching with Trent, and another time, guys, just the margin of error. You have a nice run, another flag pops out there, then all of a sudden another pick. So it's just consistency, and any time you're facing talented teams, the margin of error is very minimal.
So that was Urban Meyer when he was asked what he learned from his first NFL game. This is the first time in his career he's opened up 0-1. He's never lost a week one opener. Now, I know he's playing coaching in the NFL now as opposed to college football, but that screenshot of the player standing behind Urban Meyer, and I don't know if he's looking at the back of Urban Meyer's head the way that the picture makes it look like, but just giving a death glare into what looks to be the back of Urban Meyer's head. Oh, speaking of death glares, Mike Vrabel is on SportsCenter, right? He's not live on SportsCenter, but they're running the clip on First Take of Mike Vrabel in what everybody else is calling it, him calling out Julio Jones. TMZ even had an article.
I don't know how many push notifications I got from ESPN and the like about that.
Hey, you know what sucks? Speaking of losers of the football weekend, I don't know Adam Schefter. I've never talked to Adam Schefter. I've never met Adam Schefter. But what Adam Schefter did to Teron Davenport yesterday sucked, because Adam Schefter screen recorded Teron Davenport's clip of this quote at the press conference yesterday, posted it on his social media feeds, didn't tag TD.
Ooh, and his fellow colleague, too.
That's a betrayal by a teammate. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you are Adam Schefter, and if ESPN is going to protect you at all costs, and if Tehran, I understand that Tehran can't go at Adam Schefter publicly, and maybe Tehran is infinitely more diplomatic than I am, but that pissed me off because I was scrolling Instagram yesterday. I saw Tehran's video, except it was coming from Adam Schefter's Instagram feed, and that was crappy. Winner of the football weekend is the Cat at Hard Rock Stadium. That was insane. Thank God that somebody had an American flag on hand because it was 9/11, and they just happened to have an American flag with which to catch this stadium cat that was hanging on for dear life, that urinated, obviously, out of fear as it was trying to climb its way back up, was caught an American flag, and then was held up by the crowd like Simba in The Lion King in victory, which honestly pissed me off a little bit because, like, that cat's been through enough.
Poor thing.
You don't need to hold it up like it's a football that you've just intercepted and the crowd goes wild. But thank God the cat survived. It probably has stadium PTSD. Maybe next time it'll find somewhere else to hide outside of a University of Miami game.
Big weekend for cats in NFL stadiums after the Panthers thing.
Oh my God. We'll talk about that and what Mike Vrabel had to say. This is the line on First Take right now. Mike Vrabel slams Julio Jones for costly penalty. We'll talk about it coming up next.
Besides sports, what's the 3HL's favorite thing? It's the food that goes along with sports.
They were yummy.
And some loaded tots,
And the tots with
Asian
brisket.
zing. Asian zing was
See,
that
I'm
new flavor.
I'm a brisket tots girl right now.
You know why you lick the sides of your ice cream sandwich?
So it doesn't melt all over you.
No. Usually people always say, let me get the other half of that. Yeah. You lick all the sides, they can't ask for the other half.
The 3HL with Brent Doherty, Don Davenport, and Ron Slay. Monday starting at 3 on 104.5 The Zone.
turning into Tigers radio on Thursday because they are going to be broadcasting Waverly High School's game, and the game is going to be played at Nissan Stadium. So we're very excited to have Coach Boldin on to talk about, is it weird that I just kind of want to ask him how he is? Like, Coach, how you doing? Doing okay, bud? Everything
No,
okay?
I'm sure they're very excited. I talked to him yesterday. They're pumped.
Okay, well, good. Because there's a lot of football questions asked, but then I'm like, I just kind of want to check on him.
And they're winning.
No, I know.
It's awesome.
It's got a special kind of, I don't even know, just a special kind of aura around it this season that they are trying to put on for a place that's been through so much suffering. And I really, really respect and appreciate all that they're doing, even in the small world of high school football, right? This is not anything. I don't want to say that it's not anything game-changing. I'm trying not to diminish what it is. I'm just saying that it's not anything overwhelming that's happening, but it's enough to give people hope and give people distraction. And I think in and of itself, it's a really cool thing. So anyway, Waverly High School coach Randall Boldin will join us for our TN High School Hero segment at 11:45. In the meantime, I want to talk about what's happening on First Take right now. First Take's headline, as we were going to commercial break, was Mike Vrabel slams Julio Jones for dumb penalty on Sunday. Because Mike gave a press conference yesterday. You heard it, or you heard most of it, and then we had to go away from it because Mike was talking about said penalty and did not use FCC-safe language. But Mike Vrabel was asked about the penalty against Julio Jones that cost them critical field position early in the game. Now, this was on top of the fact that Julio Jones caught only 3 catches for 29 yards, was underwhelming, had a couple of drops, was not clearly on the same page with his new quarterback. It was problematic out there. But for the Tennessee Titans, this is something that they have been touting all offseason long, right? The idea that Julio Jones is veteran leadership embodied, that he is going to come in, that his reputation in Atlanta was not necessarily that because of the way that things kind of devolved between Julio Jones and ownership. At the end, Arthur Blank is doing a sit-down with The Athletic, and he's talking about, that really damaged our relationship. The fact that he was unavailable and Arthur Smith didn't want to deal with him because he wasn't going to practice and you need him on the field, yada, yada, yada. Okay. But so Mike gets up there yesterday, and he's asked a question. He's asked a question about the penalty that Julio Jones drew because Julio Jones straight up swung on a dude early in the game and got a 15-yard penalty, unnecessary roughness. So this was Mike Vrabel's response when asked about said penalty.
Critical mistake. I don't think that those are absolutely that's absolutely nothing that we coach or teach. So that would fall into the category of doing dumb that hurts the team. Right there in bold letters. Goes from 3rd and 1 to 3rd and 16.
Dumb bleep that hurts the team. Like Mike Vrabel would say of any other player. But instead today, it runs on all the push notifications, Bleacher Report, ESPN. TMZ sent me a damn push notification about Titans head coach slam star wide receiver.
It was this time last year that was about Rashaan Evans after getting ejected from the Broncos game in the season opener.
Literally the exact same situation.
Same quote.
Don't do dumb bleep to hurt the team. And it's not the first time Mike Vrabel said it. It's just Rashaan Evans doesn't matter in the way that Julio Jones does to the rest of the football populace. Now, I've already talked about Adam Schefter, and what he did was wrong to rip off Teron Davenport's video. That pissed me off because he used it as his own content, and it clearly wasn't his content. But regardless, the way that this is being blown out of proportion is so – it's not funny. It is funny. But it's not. It's annoying. Like, why does it have to be this way? Why can Mike Vrabel not talk about Julio Jones in the same terms that he would talk about any other player? Am I missing like an Aaron Rodgers type situation where you have to coddle Julio Jones the way that the Packers are having to coddle Aaron Rodgers? By the way, I'm kidding when I say that I thought he tanked that football game against the Saints, but I thought it was I did not think it was out of the realm of possibility given how poorly he played against New Orleans on Sunday. But why can he just not talk about players that way? No lies detected by Vrabel, says Austin Y on YouTube. Sure, but it's the same thing. It's the same exact line with the same exact penalty minus the ejection for Rashaan Evans in week 1 last season. And nobody made a big deal out of Titans head coach slams inside linebacker. It's just, what are we doing? Why is this a headline today? Are we that? It's not like we're out of things to talk about on a Tuesday, coming off an incredible Monday night game and a fantastic first week of the NFL and fun college football upsets, but this is what's leading First Take. Not leading First Take, but it's on First Take's rundown. 615-737-1045. I just don't understand why it has to be turned into something it's not. Is it just because of who Julio Jones is?
Yes.
Okay. Good answer.
Case closed.
All right, very good. We'll see. We'll talk about some upsets in we'll talk about some upsets in college football. It's funny. Joe Rexrode of The Athletic just texted me and said, JFC, meaning Jesus bleeping Christ, man. Tell me how many times Vrabel has ripped players in his time here. List them for me. I will list them at great length. Rashaan Evans has been ripped for dumb penalties. Jayon Brown has been ripped early in Mike Vrabel's career. Jayon Brown once told us that he had to not take everything that Mike Vrabel said so seriously because of how hard he was riding Jayon Brown in 2018, his first year here. He has ripped players across the board for not performing up to their standard. And just because it happens to be Julio Jones, now it's on national television. Mike Felder of Stadium will join us coming up next. We'll talk about the biggest upsets in college football over the weekend. There were 3 of them that were particularly massive, and we will spend some time on the SEC as well. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
It's Brentwood versus Ravenwood in the Battle of the Woods in the 104.5 The Zone Football Friday Night Game of the Week, presented by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office and Paul Winkler Investing. Coverage starts Friday night at 6 with Will Bowling and Lucas Panzica on your home for high school football. 104.5 The Zone.
of stadium. On that note, Mike, what's up?
Man, just getting ready for the third week, of college football.
Well, they do this week 0 thing, so I don't fault you at all for thinking that it's still week 2. But what was the biggest upset of the weekend to you? Because that Jacksonville State, Florida State thing was ridiculous, but I still cannot get over Oregon going into the horseshoe and taking down Ohio State.
Yeah, I think Oregon was the biggest one of the week. I mean, there were a couple almost between Notre Dame and A&M that would have really popped on the list if they would have got the job done. They just couldn't close the door. But I think from a meaningful standpoint, obviously, Oregon is the name. And then from a kind of a shock or the way that it happened standpoint, I think Florida State takes that cake.
So with Ohio State, like I know that their defense has looked particularly less than through a couple of games now, but I mean, there's no question that Oregon out-toughed them, out-physicaled them at the line of scrimmage, which is what Mario Cristobal has been trying to accomplish since getting to Oregon. What were they able to exploit on that Ohio State defense, or is this just a group that's discombobulated right now?
I think it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. I think they are kind of discombobulated, and I think that their failure to adjust, and I think it's whether it's a marriage to man coverage because that makes your corners look good, or corners wanting to play man and not recognizing what's happening to them, even though they're trying to use man principles through zone coverage. But at the end of the day, I think the big thing that sunk them, and everybody points to the linebacker play, but linebackers work in concert with the secondary, and whether it's safeties or corners. The 2 C.J. Verdel touchdowns that looked like they were on the same play, there were a couple different elements to those plays. One was a 2-by-2 formation. The other one was a 1-by-3 formation. But the reality of it was they crack blocked, and that crack block goes to your safety or goes to your linebacker, which means that your corner's got to come down to replace to set the edge for that defense, especially when they're optioning off the defensive end, and they didn't do that. And then the second one, crack block, down block on the defensive end, which means linebacker can set the edge, except he gets cracked on. Safety gets cracked on because it's a 2-by-2, which means the corner has to come hard force, and they didn't do that at all, which leads to wide open runs. So for me, I think they've got to improve communication. They've got to improve what defenses they can play, and they've got to really figure out some sort of a healthy marriage between man coverage, hard pattern matching in zone, versus just spot dropping in zone.
Former Titans defensive back coach Kerry Coombs overseeing that defense and not necessarily starting out the way that I know they expect to there in Columbus. Texas and Arkansas. I don't know why I don't know why I feel the way I do about Texas, but every time they lose like this, I just laugh. Like it's not like I'm rooting against them. I don't have anything against Steve Sarkisian or any of these people at Texas, but I can't get over the fact that they can't get out of their own way, Mike. What went wrong in particular in this game, you know, outside of the obvious losing by 19 to a team that you're clearly more talented than?
Listen, I like Texas. I like the players. They got a bunch of players that I really like. Whittington and obviously Bijan. I love Roschon Johnson. I think B.J. Foster is a really good safety. They've got players I like. The Brockermeyer kid is really good. But I think the reason you feel the way you feel is because they keep telling us that Texas is back, and then this happens, and you're like, guys, maybe pump the brakes. Yeah. And so I think that's a big element to why it's like, okay, well, you got your teeth kicked in. Maybe don't try to tell me how you're the best job in college football and how things are great for you when you can't beat Arkansas. And I think the real interesting part from an on-the-field standpoint and just from a between-the-chalks standpoint, they're not tough up front, and you can't be – if you're not tough up front on either side of the ball really, then you don't get to dictate. And if you can't dictate to the opposition, then not only are you not back, but you're on your heels the entire game. And they played like a team that was on their heels the entire game because they didn't control either line of scrimmage. Bijan Robinson, he had some nice runs, but the reality of it was those runs came off of Arkansas making mistakes. Those runs came off of Arkansas guessing wrong or being caught in a slant or a stun or being caught, in a pressure where he was able to find that hole and cut it back and they were out of position. But the reality of it is, up front, Arkansas dominated. Hey, and guess what? Hats off to having an offensive lineman as your head coach, Sam Pittman, because they are tough. Arkansas, they may not be inventive. They may not be fun to watch all the time, but they are going to do two things really, really well. You've got a salty old defensive coordinator in Barry Odom. You got an offensive line coach as your head coach. You're going to be strong in the trenches, and you're going to do your job on defense. And both of those things held true, and that's how you get wins like this one.
Michael Felder of Stadium is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Have you heard the funniest audio in the history of Texas audio with this reporter grilling Chris Del Conte prior, or I guess it was after it was announced that they're going to the SEC? Lucas, if we can play this audio for Michael Felder, please.
What's your athletic budget?
It's over $200 million. It's probably 220, 225 in that range.
Where does that put you in the U.S.?
Depending on how you count, probably first.
And that's without a winning football team of late.
It's in spite of our football team. We've been winning, just not like we like to win.
3-7 against the Horned Frogs. So maybe your fan base would rather lose to Alabama than TCU. So
I have
heard that.
I have the parties incorrect. That's the president of Texas being grilled by a senator talking about.
Yes.
It's spectacular sound all around.
I have heard that. That was when they announced they're leaving, and then they did the Texas Senate hearing about it. Yes, I have heard that. And I mean, it's a good point, and it's one of those things where you don't get to brag about how much money you have if you don't have the wins to back it up. And that's one of those things where, what are you paying for? And we think about it all the time with A&M, obviously, as well. But if you're spending this much money, don't you want results?
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously, and they continue to dump money into it. It's a never-ending process for them.
Well, you can't pour money into a hole and think that that's how it's gonna work. I think the reality of it is, and obviously Clay Helton just got fired. USC doesn't have the same money as Texas, but USC I think has a very similar problem to Texas. Same thing with Miami as well. They just think they're going to be good. They don't recognize that you get good because you hire good people, and that hire is important. Those people need support, and they need to be back, and not just financially, but from a we believe in you standpoint. And it's really been interesting to see that toughness, fight, line play has been far less a part of the discussion with Miami, with USC, and obviously with Texas. Everybody is talking about quarterbacks, right? I've done a couple things coming out of this past weekend. People are like, well, Hudson Card this and Casey Thompson. And I'm like, hey, man, they got their teeth kicked in up front. That's what you need to focus on, but it's not sexy to people. And so that's not the thing that nearly enough people focus on. But USC got their teeth kicked in by Stanford as well. And people should realize when USC is good, yes, they have Reggie Bush or Matt Leinart or Carson Palmer, but they also have huge guys up front that you do not want to get into a brawl with.
Yeah. It seems that Steve Sarkisian was even lacking that kind of perspective because he's talking about the quarterback as a fluid situation for Texas, which I thought was completely unfair to Hudson Card. Mike Norvell, what the hell?
I mean, this is the team. Oof. They're not tough up front. We could put them into the box too.
Yeah.
Not tough up front, and I think and extrapolate this, right? So we see them lose to Jacksonville State. We see Notre Dame, they should have lost to Toledo. 2 pass interferences give them free first downs, free 30 yards, and now they're in position to get the go-ahead score. And obviously they end up winning that game. But Notre Dame and Florida State feel like they're on the same page.
Yeah.
And maybe that game changes. They played in South Bend in November, but the reality of it is they look pretty evenly matched, and they also look pretty evenly matched to Jacksonville State. So it's for Florida State. They've got a lot of work to do. They have offensive line problems as well. They also have they've got some serious discipline problems in terms of how they play. They make mistakes, a lot of mistakes defensively, missed assignments, missed alignments, and the reality of it is they got to clean that up. It's one thing to make mistakes of aggression. It's another thing to make mistakes of sort of paralysis by analysis. Mistakes of aggression, whether it's a late hit out of bounds or, an offsides because you try to jump the snap count. I can live with those. What I can't live with are mistakes that lead to coverage busts because you're not on the same page, because you're not communicating. Or in the case of the final play, they run 4 verts for the second play in a row, and your safety's late getting there, and then neither one of you decide to tamp down and make a tackle. Instead, both of you guys are kind of just out there hoping the other person makes the play. You can't live with those type of mistakes.
Michael Felder here with us on 104.5 The Zone, talking about the weekend that was in college football. Now, remind me, if I recall correctly, you were in on Joe Milton when you heard that he received the starting job at the University of Tennessee, correct?
Yeah, I like Joe. I think Hooker's good, but I think Joe Milton's a little better. I think the big thing for him is he's got to throw the ball a little bit. He got to put some touch on it instead of trying to throw it through everybody's chest.
Oh my
So
God!
I guess we're going to find out. Do you know if he's healthy or not?
It doesn't sound like they know whether he's healthy or not. I watched Josh Heupel's press conference yesterday, and they were I think he's keeping it fluid so he doesn't have to make a decision publicly on the quarterback.
Yeah.
But I mean, they just 21 points just left on the board, Mike, and I know he's making a throw that only like Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers can make on that bomb to Jalen Hyatt that I think got him killed or concussed or something in between there, where he just straight nuked the receiver and the defensive back. He has such spectacular talent, but the offense has these guys running wide open all over the field, and he just keeps missing them.
Yeah, I think it's an issue of settling and understanding. So I don't know. And you got me dead to rights, because watching that game, they had an opportunity to score a lot more points, which is kind of scary because Pitt kind of prides themselves on their defense, but they had an opportunity to score a lot more points. And you do have to get settled, and you have to figure it out and make it work. And then obviously him being hurt, thrust Hendon Hooker into the game, and I think it's a completely different game plan with Hooker in the game than it is with him. And I mean, honestly, I was more hats off to Pitt than I was negative on Tennessee, because Tennessee has probably a better roster than Pitt, but Pitt, I think, is a team that is more put together, and they live in that identity, and they won a game that was a lot of outside of their identity, because they really like to play 24-17 games.
And Kenny Pickett was spectacular in that game as well. After those first three and outs, 5 straight scoring drives for the Panthers at Neyland Stadium.
Let me ask you something. Is there a faster player in the country than Kenny Pickett when he is scrambling to the sidelines? He is running with this whole, like, you can see it in his face. It's, please don't hit me, please don't hit me, please don't hit me. Let me get to the sideline.
If there is, Mike, I can't find him in the sport this year, because that was cracking me up on
He's
Saturday.
in the NFL. It's Kyler Murray.
He's in the NFL. It's Kyler Murray. That's about as good analysis as you can get. Here with Mike Felder on 104.5 The Zone. Go ahead, Lucas.
Mike, does Anthony Richardson take over the quarterback spot for over Emory Jones for Florida this weekend?
Is he healthy?
Day by day, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the big question. I mean, the numbers on Richardson are insane. Like, I don't know if you've looked at these numbers, but his yards per play are bananas. And he's such a big play machine, but I don't know what that looks like. Like, his rushing number, he averaged 25 yards a rush. That's insane. That's a crazy number to average. And
it doesn't sound real at all. That just sounds like something you're making up. I don't believe that. What?
Yeah, 25 yards a rush. He has 11 rushes for, like, whatever that, you math that out to 25, so 255 or something like that. Yeah.
Take your word for it.
It's crazy. But Emory, I think, is still the better passer for them. And with Alabama, you are going to have to throw the ball at some point, especially if you're coming in limping. They're going to break you. So it's going to be interesting to see how this takes shape, because I feel like coming into, at least going back to spring, Mullen was excited for Emory Jones, and now he has this new piece in Anthony Richardson, and now it's like okay, I've got 2 things that I really like. I don't know what I'm going to do. You know that they're the 2 leading rushers on this football team, Emory and Richardson. They're the 2 leading rushers for Florida, not the running backs. Davis, Pierce, DeMarcus Bowman from the Clemson transfer. No, those guys are 3, 4, 5.
Right.
The quarterbacks are the leading rushers, so I guess, and this is really their first test of the year, and it's a big test, obviously, because you're taking on Alabama. So I'm curious to see how the drives are divvied up between these 2 guys. But first and foremost, we need Richardson to be healthy.
Have you been surprised by anything in the SEC so far through, 2 weeks of college football, seeing our first inter-SEC game between Missouri and Kentucky over the weekend? Has there been anything across the conference that's kind of caught your eye?
I think the biggest surprise for me is probably at A&M, and obviously we know Haynes King went down, and he's going to be out till, mid-October?
Yeah.
But their inability to, in a game against Colorado, I know it was in Boulder, inability to establish the run. I thought coming in, their team that had they got 3 top-quality running backs there, right, with Aeneas Smith, and then you throw in Isaiah Spiller, who was healthy who finally got healthy for this game, and there's one more guy, A-Chain or whatever his name is, that they got 3 guys that could run the ball for them. They got an opportunity to hulk up, and they couldn't hulk up against Colorado. What does that mean for the season going forward? Because Calzada is limited as a quarterback, and they found ways to make him successful, but what does it mean for them moving forward as a team that, listen, I doing shows and everything, and then you just get these messages from random Texas A&M fan that's like, you didn't talk about us when you mentioned contenders, and I was like, I'm not sure that you are yet, and certainly right now after that showing 10-7 Colorado, 10-7 game against Colorado, and it's a W for them, but let's see what that looks like as they move forward without their starting quarterback.
The rare win that feels like a loss.
Yeah.
Mike,
it was a loss. It wasn't a loss on the scoreboard, but it was a loss in terms of their quarterback, and he's going to be out for almost a month.
Yeah.
For me, it's Kentucky, Mike, seeing them win a shootout over Missouri. Not something we're used to in the Mark Stoops era. Are they, at this point, the clear-cut third-best team in the SEC East?
Literally, my guy Stephen Hartzell that I work with at Learfield, he was like, I'm excited for Mizzou, Kentucky, because I want to know who's number 3 in the SEC East. And, yeah, Kentucky's got the keys to the car to finish third, which why is that a celebration? I don't know, but it is. And
because it's Kentucky. It's the tackle cats. Out of here with that. That's insane to me.
I mean, South Carolina should have lost to ECU.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yes, you do have to feel better about that if you're Kentucky. You beat a conference opponent. You beat a divisional opponent. That one's behind you. That's in the rear view with a W. So now you got an opportunity. Maybe they sneak up and get somebody else, which is going to be interesting for them. But, yeah, no, I think Kentucky becomes your clear-cut number 3 because it's certainly not going to be Tennessee, and it's not going to be South Carolina either.
The Vols fans, they're already down, Mike. Just kick them a couple times more. Make sure they're
still
still
We didn't even mention Vandy.
Well, Vandy, my God, they almost lost. They almost lost again this week, and it's a stunner that they pulled out their first win since basically 2019.
Good win for them.
It's a win for them. Any win is a good win for Vanderbilt. Mike Felder of Stadium, kind enough to give us some of his time on 104.5 The Zone at In the Bleachers is where you can follow him. Subscribe to his Substack. It's great stuff. On the blog is called It's Felder, 4 Hard Downs. The Week 2 post-mortem is available for the people now. He's got podcasts all over the place. Mike, are you just bored of talking to yourself? Do you just is this where the podcasts are originating from? You can't be bored of cooking because the recipes that you're cranking out on social media look incredible.
No, listen, I love talking to myself. I am it's just you always got to have your hands in a couple different buckets. So I'm working it out. Yeah, it's felder.bulletin.com, and listen, you're going to get some more of my substandard video editing and horrible handwriting while I draw plays up.
Sign me up. I'm here for it. Thank you for making us smarter, Mike. Enjoy the weekend.
Thank you. You take it easy.
Mike Felder. I don't know why I said enjoy the weekend on a Tuesday, but, he knows what I mean. Enjoy the weekend of college football.
We didn't even mention Penn State-Auburn.
That's going to be nuts.
That college game day's there. Happy Valley. That could be a good one.
It's going to be great. I hope it's great. Auburn looks fun.
Yeah, we'll learn a lot about Brian Harson's Tigers on Saturday.
I hate to say that publicly because I know Dawn Davenport's listening, and I just think of that awful promo that's running of her chanting poorly, A-U-B-U-R-N, woo!
Yeah, they looked fun against Akron. They did. Was it even Akron? I don't even know who they played.
No, Akron was week 1. They put like 60 on them.
Against Terry Bowden's not in Akron anymore. Former Auburn coach Terry Bowden. But yeah, we're going to learn a lot. It was Akron and Samford and Akron. That's who they played, weeks 1 and 2.
Okay. I was about to say, I thought you said Akron played Samford. I'm like, why the hell are you watching an Akron?
No, I lied. It was Akron and Alabama State. Two mighty opponents.
All right. So without Lucas confusing us more about who played whom over the weekend, we'll go to break.
Besides sports, what's the 3HL's favorite thing? It's the food that goes along with sports.
They were yummy.
And some loaded tots,
And
too.
the tots with
Asian
brisket.
zing. Asian zing was
see,
that
I'm
new flavor.
a brisket tots girl right now.
You know why you lick the sides of your ice cream sandwich? So it doesn't melt all over you. No. Usually people always say, let me get the other half of that. Yeah. You lick all the sides, they can't ask for the other half.
The 3HL with Brent Doherty, Don Davenport, and Ron Slay. Today starting at 3 on 104.5 The Zone.
segment and talk with Coach Boldin about the game that's going to be played at Nissan Stadium on Thursday. The Waverly Tigers versus White House. They're going to have all the bells and whistles of a Titans radio broadcast. There is going to be Coach Mack, Mike Keith, Rep Bryan, Amy Wells, Lucas Panzica's even going to be involved, and he gets to go to the game instead of sitting in a dark studio and hovering over a control board, although I'm sure you're still going to be hovering over a control board. But it's going to be fantastic, and it's all to raise money for, of course, the disaster in Waverly and the recovery effort from the flooding not that long ago. You can go, by the way, to TennesseeTitans.com/donate to Waverly, and you can support the team there. You can also claim a free ticket at NissanStadium.com. I kind of want to do A to Z Sports Prime Time from the stadium. I think I might see if that's possible.
Get a credential?
Well,
from the press box?
The Titans PR staff emailed us this morning and said, hey, let us know if you guys want credentials for the Waverly game. And, it's at 7 o'clock. Prime time's at 8, so normally I wouldn't think about that. But I did prime time from the stadium on Sunday night. I know that I can do prime time in Nissan Stadium. And the press box is probably going to be pretty empty outside of local columnists and reporters, so I could probably just snag a spare booth. I don't think it's going to be like a full NFL game production, like where assistant coaches are hanging out in the booth where I typically do prime time. But I think I might ask about that. V-Love says, do we know if they're selling beer there? Asking for a friend. I do not know if they're selling beer there. I know that the press box will not have food for the Vultures, but I would have to imagine that they would have concessions open. I don't know the answer to that question, V-Love. Well, no, it does say that concession stands will be open near Section 112, serving food and beverage, at a 50% discount. Does that count for alcohol? You have people just trashed at a high school football game. Lucas is getting voicemail, so we'll catch up with Coach Randall Boldin at a later time. In the meantime, we will talk about the situation with Julio Jones and with the Tennessee Titans and what has been happening across national television today. Now, we touched on this earlier. And Mike Vrabel being asked about it by Jim Wyatt, and I haven't changed my mind on this because I've kind of sloughed it off. I think what First Take is doing is a bit ridiculous where they're saying Titans head coach rips star wide receiver. But I want you to hear this audio again about Mike Vrabel talking about Julio Jones' penalty that cost them a 3rd-and-1 situation, turned into the third and 16, unnecessary roughness. And Mike was asked about it by Jim Wyatt yesterday. This was the response.
Critical mistake. I don't think that those are absolutely that's absolutely nothing that we coach or teach. So that would fall into the category of doing dumb that hurts the team. Right there in bold letters. Goes from 3rd and 1 to 3rd and 16.
It's not ideal. So my initial reaction was, Mike talks about a lot of people that way. But in reality, he doesn't do it at the podium that way very often. I've since had a change of heart about this. Mike Vrabel will rip everybody, coaches, players, media on the practice field, right? Like it's nobody's safe. And Vrabel will do it in the press conferences to us, but not to the players, right? Mike Vrabel is players' coach. He protects the players at all costs from criticism. He directs the criticism to himself, basically, or at least that's been the case for the majority of his career. This year it's felt a little different, right? Where there's this whole Des Fitzpatrick thing where, don't tell Mike Vrabel that he's been displeased with Des Fitzpatrick because all he said is that he needs to see a lot more at practice. Whether it's criticism of Dylan Radins and where he has been in his progression and where he needs to improve, leading to a healthy scratch on Sunday for the Titans' second-round pick. Then there's this situation with Julio where it's not just that he gave that response. It's about who asked him the question. And it's not like I'm putting Jimmy Wyatt in a bad spot when I say this, but when Jim Wyatt asks a question at the press conference, it's not necessarily intended to elicit a controversial response. Shall we say it that way? I think that's pretty diplomatic. I'm not saying that Jimmy's not asking the right questions. I'm just saying that because Jim is a team employee, it looks a little different that way, right? So when Jimmy asks a question like that, and that's the response that Vrabel gives, I do think that there's a degree of public messaging that's being put out there. Now, I go back to what Mike Vrabel said about Julio Jones and about all of his best players, that he's going to be harder on the best players because he expects the most from them. And it's kind of in line with that thinking, whereas Mike Vrabel is not like, he did not call out Taylor Lewan publicly for Taylor's poor play on Sunday. In fact, if I go back and look at the transcript, I'm pretty sure that the answer about that yesterday just amounted to, yes, sometimes you get beat, which is not the same thing as what we're talking about with Julio Jones today. More than anything, I think that there is messaging, because you need to be diplomatic with how you handle Julio Jones, right? Maybe that's not what you want to hear as a fan. You want to hear that everybody on the football team is treated the same, and everybody should be held to the same standard, and everybody should be talked to the same, yada, 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 yada. It's not true in professional sports. The NBA is probably the worst offender of this, but the NFL is there as well. Just look at what's happening with Aaron Rodgers, or what has happened with Aaron Rodgers all offseason long. Look at what Tom Brady is doing now that he's free from the iron grip of Bill Belichick. He's out here doing Subway perfume bread commercials and crypto coin and the ESPN Plus exclusive documentary series on Tom Brady that's just going to be a Tom Brady love fest for 6 hours on ESPN Plus. He's doing all of this more because he gets to. He's making more of the rules. Julio Jones is the kind of player that gets to make some of the rules on whichever team he plays for. But the balance between, say, that and how other players are treated on that team, it can be a polarizing thing in a locker room. I know, for example, and I think I've talked about this at length, maybe not since I've had the radio show, since that was last season and this is the first year of us doing the radio show, but with Jadeveon Clowney. Jadeveon Clowney was handled differently at practice. And that rubbed a lot of players, maybe not a lot of players, but it did rub some players the wrong way in that locker room. It did cause some friction. Jadeveon Clowney is not worthy of that kind of star treatment. Julio Jones is, even if it didn't look like that on Sunday. But how Mike Vrabel balances that with criticism in the media, and then how you talk to this dude behind the scenes and how you talk to this dude in front of his peers, his teammates on the practice field, is something that's going to have to be given consideration too, because it's a very delicate balance and something that the Titans are going to have to figure out. We'll continue this discussion coming up next. If you want to weigh in, 615-737-1045. Does Julio Jones deserve the star treatment in Tennessee? He's proven it for a decade in Atlanta, but there's precious little evidence of him being a difference maker through one game on his new team. We'll talk about it coming up next. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Take every Titans game with you.
Put your seatbelt on and let's do this thing. Let's do this thing is right.
Get every game by downloading the 104.5 The Zone app.
Asked everything that happened between the Raiders and the Ravens last night in the AFC. But first, we're very happy to be joined by the head coach of the Waverly Tigers football program, Randall Boldin, joins us now on 104.5 The Zone. Coach, thank you so much for taking the time. How are you today?
Doing pretty good, guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I guess I should just start this off by asking you how you're doing, how your kids are doing, how your community has been doing over the last couple of weeks.
You know, we're slowly getting back on our feet. You know, this is going to be a long process for everyone. For our sports programs, for our community, it's just going to be a long process, and the only thing we can do is wake up every day and get to work.
Without question, and that seems to be exactly what you guys have done. I mean, this start has been so spectacular to be able to follow from afar with your football team, the way that they've responded to the kind of adversity that you guys have been going through. What's it been like to witness that from the sidelines?
You know, it's been good. It's taken us a little bit to get time, kind of get back going. I think you hit the nail on the head when you start talking about adversity. It's something we preach to our kids, and they've certainly had a lot of it the last couple of years, and this is no different. So they just got to find a way, to get back to doing what we do, getting back to our standard and working hard and let things happen the way they happen.
This game that you guys will play on Thursday at Nissan Stadium against the White House Blue Devils, Titans Radio is going to be on the call. It's going to be a pretty unique environment for you guys to have the opportunity to compete in. But what's it like to kind of, get the team to focus on what the objective is at hand and not necessarily ignore all of the bells and whistles that will be surrounding them on Thursday, but kind of focus in on what the objective is?
Well, it's going to be a challenge on my part, I know, from my perspective, just simply because every outside influence and adversity that you can have with the kids going into a week is happening for us. We have homecoming, we have senior night. It's a Thursday game instead of a Friday, and by the way, you're playing at Nissan Stadium. So we have all those outside influences coming in. Our message to our kids is we still have a football game. White House is a very good football team. They're a region opponent, so we've got to focus on the game, and we're going to have our hands full, and we've got to be able to execute and play a good brand of football that we're accustomed to doing.
If you want to see Waverly play White House, you can claim your free ticket at nissanstadium.com. Head coach Randall Boldin of the Waverly Tigers is here with us on 104.5 The Zone.
Coach, want to hone in on that win at Sycamore, 42-20. Obviously, you followed that up, a dominant win at McNary Central, 42-0. Things have been good on the field since the floods took place a couple of weeks ago. But just that first game back at Sycamore, what was that week of preparation like? Was there kind of a level of apprehension, not knowing how your kids were going to respond? Then what was it like in that first and second quarter to see that dominant win start to develop after such a tough couple of weeks for the community?
Well, first of all, it was good to get back on the field. I mean, I think our kids needed that. I think our community needed that. So for us just to get back on the field was a blessing. In that game, we were fortunate enough to come up with a good victory there. We as a staff didn't feel like we played to our standards, so we had a lot of stuff to work on. I thought last week against McNary that we played a lot better. We played more to our standard and how we should be playing the game. And hopefully we're kind of getting back in a routine. Hopefully we can carry this momentum and keep pushing it through the season.
Now against the White House team in Nissan Stadium, this is a Blue Devils group that's won 3 games in a row at this point, including a shootout win over Portland just last week. What kind of challenge do you have in front of you this Thursday?
Oh, we're going to have our hands full. They're big up front. They have a good athlete playing the quarterback position. They got a good athlete sprinkled across their roster. They've got a team of 80-plus kids, so they're about double our size as far as, population on your team. They play a physical brand of football, which is something we kind of hung our hats on as well. So it's going to be a dogfight, and our kids have got to be focused and locked in and ready to play.
Coach Randall Boldin is here with us on 104.5 The Zone talking about the upcoming game at Nissan Stadium between Waverly Central and White House. So, Coach, to that end, I mean, the objective, of course, is to win the game and to kind of continue to push past all of the mitigating circumstances that have been swirling around your part of the state and your football team. But to that end, I mean, how refreshing has it been, as you mentioned earlier, to just get out on the field and play football and not have necessarily all of the special circumstances that continue to be discussed about your part of the state continue to hover around what's going on with Waverly right now?
Yeah, we tell our kids, we just every day when we get to practice, we're just focusing on football. So, that's 2.5, 3 hours that they can just focus on football and nothing else. And we try to send that message to them. So it's been great for us just to enjoy this game that we love. To just enjoy it, and what it does for our community and how we come together as a team. So we've tried to enjoy that process, but, again, we go back to when we were trying to build this program, like continuing the success they've had in the past and take it to a greater height. So we have standards, and our kids have to live up to those standards every single day in practice. So it's been refreshing to get back out there and get after and get back in a routine and see our kids grind a little bit. As a coach, that's what you want to see. You want to see your kids at practice, busting their butts, getting ready for that upcoming opponent.
Coach, I hear that your cup runneth over as far as equipment donations are concerned, but what else does Waverly High School need right now as far as what people can donate and what people can contribute to try and help everybody get back on their feet over there?
Yeah, our short-term needs as far as our football program, our short-term needs are met. We have enough equipment and everything to get our kids through the season going forward. Our attention now will turn to long-term. We've got to get our stadium situation fixed, our field house fixed. We'll have weight room stuff that all have to be replaced. So in our school board, they have a ton of other things that are going on with them as well. So, rightfully so, we'll be toward the bottom of those needs. So that's where our attention is turning to. So we have a website set up. It's called wearewaverly.com. On that website, you can go to all the sports programs as well as a donation to the families that lost a lot during this flood. So through that website, you can reach us for donations, and all those donations will go toward, our rebuilding process.
Wearewaverly.com is where you can go to give them a helping hand. And you can also attend the game at Nissan Stadium. Claim your free ticket at nissanstadium.com. Coach Randall Boldin of Waverly High School has been kind enough to give us some of his time today on 104.5 The Zone. Coach, congratulations on the success that you guys have had so far. Continued success and health throughout the course of the season, and thank you so much for the time.
Hey, appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Randall Boldin here with us on 104.5 The Zone.
By the way, volunteers, they're saying are still needed out there to help with the debris. I mean, outside of the high school and the football program, which obviously still needs attention, but just the community in general. And I'm looking at something from News 2 right now that the Dollar Tree parking lot off West Main Street in Waverly is still acting as the volunteer center. They've had a ton of volunteers kind of drop off as time has gone on. They still very much need help out there because a lot of that damage is still lasting from a couple of weeks ago.
If anything in the 6 years that I've lived here that I've witnessed has really struck a chord with me, it's been the way that people show up in support when disastrous situations occur in this community. Now, I know that Nashville and Waverly are not necessarily that close to one another, but still, like the ethos of volunteer state, the way that it kind of hovers over everything that people who are from here, people who live here, people who continue to practice and preach that kind of charitable work and stewardship. I certainly witnessed it in my neighborhood after the tornado. I know that that's been the case since the flooding occurred a couple of weeks ago, and that still more help is needed just as time passes. It's not necessarily as top of mind as it was when those images are constantly being flashed on the local news and really on the national news, because it was all over the place, the kind of disaster that saw so many lives lost in Waverly and the surrounding communities. So the more that you can do, wearewaverly.com for the donations. And as Lucas said, you can go and support them with their volunteer efforts as well as that community tries and get back on its feet. Coming up next, we'll talk about what happened last night on Monday Night Football. The game we have discussed a little bit, and we'll talk about the game as well. But something that happened on the television broadcast, because there were two of them, that I so much enjoyed, and apparently a lot of other people did as well. We'll tell you what that was and what it's got to do with Peyton Manning coming up next. I'm Buck Reising, and this is 104.5 The Zone.
J. Martin Ramon make you think.
You have the opportunity to have Julio Jones or A.J. Brown. Not both.
If I got to choose between one or the other, or this year in year 2021,
yes,
I'm taking Julio. till we see what AJ is going to do this season. I think he's going to have a good season. I'll say this. I honestly think he's going to have more yards because I feel like the alliance that he's built with Tannehill is going to say that the ball comes to you first. Right now, yes. I'm taking Julio.
Tomorrow morning from 6 to 10 on 104.5 The Zone.
cool to watch Mina doing her thing. It was also cool to watch the Ravens and the Raiders last night, a ridiculously entertaining Monday Night Football game, overtime, an ending that we thought, or I guess what should have been or could have been the ending potentially, where both teams were meeting at midfield and congratulating each other and thinking that the game was over, and everybody's getting ready for the jersey swap portion of the proceedings. And then the officials call everybody out onto the field, call everybody back out onto the field and be like, no, in fact, he was down, and we will need to run this play again from the 1-yard line with the Oakland Raiders. And so the game continues on. It ends up being a walk-off, still in the Raiders' favor, but Derek Carr throwing that interception. I watched his post-game interview last night on Monday Night Football, and he's just expressing, God, please don't let it end like this. Like, that's what he was thinking before or in the overtime period after he threw that interception. And understandably so, right? That was a hard-fought, well-contested, back and forth. I don't know if you want to call it a shootout, because it wasn't a shootout the entire game. It's certainly the fourth quarter and overtime turned into a bit of that. But not only was that experience enjoyable last night, but the broadcast was enjoyable last night. And it's not like Monday Night Football, the broadcast has been bad. Maybe during the years of the Booger Mobile, roaming the sidelines and blocking the views of many patrons in the lower bowl at respective stadiums. And Jason Witten being, God love him, just generally terrible at television with the worst hairpiece that I've ever seen in my life. Drew Brees is noticeable. Tom Brady has a lot of money, so the hair plugs look great. But Jason Witten's hairpiece, that 1 year of television, my God, that. You got to know better. Somebody's got to get to him and be like, Jason, like, just, come home. Let it go. You don't need to do this. The little bit of Sean McDonough's been doing it for years. You don't need the hair. So maybe that year or those couple of seasons of Monday Night Football were not enjoyable. But what I watched last night was not the traditional Monday Night Football broadcast. What I watched was the first edition of Peyton Manning and Eli Manning sitting, well, not together, but in respective production rooms in ESPN studios, and not necessarily calling the game, but watching the game and walking the audience through it on one of these ESPN megacasts. They've started doing this more in the last couple of years, right, where they'll have the main broadcast, the traditional play-by-play guy and color analyst in the booth, sideline reporter calling the game. And in fact, as we talk about this, they're showing Peyton Manning the highlights of last night on SportsCenter. And they've started doing these megacasts where they put a bunch of SEC coaches in a room for the national championship and let them watch it. They used to do it with some of the ESPN radio shows, with like the Dan Le Batard show during the NBA Finals. It's a unique spin on a product that we're all going to watch anyway, but maybe you want a couple of different options to peruse. So last night, I didn't start with the Manning broadcast, but I wound up there out of curiosity. And I'm so happy that I did, because I didn't leave it again. Lucas, does it make you feel threatened as a practicing and prospective play-by-play person? Does it make you threatened that the Manning brothers are coming for your profession?
No, let him have everything, man. That was awesome. Steve Levy maybe should feel threatened.
Yeah, I bet Steve Levy and Brian Greasy and Louis Riddick are pissed. Yeah. Logging onto Twitter after the game and being like, the hell, nobody talked about us at all. It's all Peyton Manning wearing an ill-fitting Ravens helmet, because that was what was happening on the alternative broadcast. Not just that, and they're going to run through the celebrity lineup when they do these things. But Charles Barkley talking, the first question Peyton Manning asks him is about who Charles bet on. And, of course, he talks about all the money that he lost and the Rams getting him even on Sunday night. So he's playing with house money with the Raiders. Then Ray Lewis comes on, and there's zero room for Eli Manning to get a word in edgewise. It's just Peyton Manning and Ray Lewis telling stories of football games and competitions past, which was thoroughly enjoyable, even if you don't like Ray Lewis.
I love them talking about, because this was with Eli, how Ray Lewis, with Eli pointing out the Mike linebacker in games against the Ravens, and Ray's like, no, I'm not the Mike, he's the Mike. And have Ed Reed creep down. No, Ed's the Mike.
Yeah.
And then okay, all right, Ed's the Mike.
Yeah, that's right. I all of it. And then Russell Wilson, who was great. Russell Wilson has never been that interesting in his entire life outside of Mr. Unlimited, which was like a 3-year-old video that the internet got its hands on.
Yeah, I rebuke that in the name of Jesus.
Woo! It was bad. God, what a publicly cringeworthy moment for Russell. Russell, who I believe to be, there's 3 human beings in sports that I believe to just be automatons. Russell Wilson, Darren Ravel, and Marcus Mariota. Marcus Mariota, I believe to be very, very robotic as at least in press conference settings. I know that Marcus has a better personality outside of the media setting. But what was happening last night, Russell Wilson was great. He was comfortable. He was having a conversation with a couple of guys that he has been peers with, that he has played, in the case of Peyton Manning, a Super Bowl against. Russell Wilson was breaking down the game in real time, giving his thoughts on the defensive alignments, the formations, Peyton Manning chiming in, and to watch the 3 of them at the end of the game and into overtime was spectacular, where they're diagnosing the blitzes, where they're diagnosing the defensive formation, saying Carr needs to check here, and you see him running the plays for himself at the line of scrimmage. He doesn't like what John Gruden is giving him. It was such a better way, in my opinion, to watch a football game. Much less, Peyton Manning and Eli Manning telling jokes throughout the course of the broadcast and stories from their time playing, like Peyton Manning did last night. Here is that audio.
One time I just led into a referee lie. I knew the guy. He's a good guy. I let it call the worst holding call. I let him have it. I felt so bad. I asked the NFL for his address after the game. I was going to write him an apology letter. They wouldn't give me his address. They thought I was going to go and egg his house or something. I'm like, I just want to write him an apology letter. Like, nobody writes the referees an apology letter. So anyway, the guy thinks I'm a jerk to this day because I cussed him out for a holding call against the Dolphins.
Just imagine Peyton Manning asking the league office for a ref's address so he can write him an apology note for the way that he ripped him. I mean, stuff like that, stuff where Peyton Manning is saying, yeah, I prefer to call my own play, or there were moments when you prefer to call your own plays as a quarterback, so you just got to absolutely sell out the equipment guy. He's saying you got to sell out the equipment guy and tell the coach, or act like while you're on the field, act like the helmet mic or the helmet speakers aren't working where the coach is trying to deliver the play call to you. You just make a motion like, yeah, my headset isn't working. Then call your own plays and run it that way and hang your equipment guy out to dry. It was so funny, and it was informative. It was so much more loose than the conventional broadcast tends to be. I think that more than anything, and I know there are some people out there who are traditionalists, just like they're the same people that are holding on to, Texas and Oklahoma shouldn't be in the SEC, and super conferences are bad for the sport, and yada, yada, yada. I want to see Oklahoma beat the holy hell out of Oklahoma State once every year in a rivalry that's hyped up between 2 interconference teams, and even though it ends up being wildly disappointing. Like, there are certain segments of the population who just want play-by-play guy, down and distance, what's the time left on the clock, how many timeouts, and then the analysis from the guy sitting next to him in the booth. And I would say to you that that's been done before. Now, ESPN has tried some creative stuff. To their credit, the Booger Mobile, I don't think, qualifies as creativity. I think it just qualifies as, I don't know what you qualify that as.
A fun toy.
Was it?
It was.
It took them a couple weeks to figure it out, and then and then you have people in the Jets stadium throwing stuff at him because they're sitting in the lower bowl and he's blocking their view.
He's a big dude.
Yeah, well, that and he's on a damn, not a forklift, but like one of these like what do you call those things that you use pre-Brian Kelly, and I'm not even making a joke there, but like when you used to put somebody on those things during a football practice to film during practice, like chairlift or scissor lift. Scissor lift, I think, is the proper term. Anyway,
that little mini era of Monday Night Football just feels like a fever dream. Like Jason Witten in the booth and like a robot and Booger McFarland zipping around on the sideline.
And Sean McDonough's voice cracks. Like, listen, as somebody who is in broadcasting, now my voice has cracked before, certainly.
Well, it was Joe Tess with those guys. McDonough had the mini stint with Gruden before Joe Tess got paired with Witten in the booth.
Why am I not remembering that?
Yeah, Gruden.
Are we sure McDonough didn't have a stint with?
No, McDonough was with Gruden because I actually read something the other day about how they were talking about why it didn't really work because John Gruden told him before, it was like, I'm not a stories guy. I'm an X's and O's guy. And Sean McDonough is a storyteller.
Oh.
So it just never, and you can tell they never really vibed. Like Mike Tirico and Gruden,
great.
Fantastic.
Great.
Amazing together.
No, you're right because I do remember interviewing Joe Tessitore after like the first week and being like, hey, bud. You know, what do you tell your partner when literally the entirety of the internet is crushing him because he said Aaron Rodgers pulled a rabbit out of his head?
Yeah.
That was a whole thing. And like once it was out there, it was there the entire season.
But they put him in a tough spot there. I always felt bad for Witten with those situations.
Oh, sure.
The guy who never broadcasted in his life. You put him at the biggest primetime broadcast in the NFL. That was unfair to me.
No, listen. It was ESPN doing the thing that every other broadcast network does, which is take the former Cowboy off the field, slap him in the booth, and let it ride. And no, it turns out not everybody is Troy Aikman. It just can't all be that. Even Moose Johnson, even the Cowboys fullback has a TV job. What the hell? That was never something I understood. Cowboys haven't been good for 20 years, and yet all of them get all of the great broadcasting gigs. And Romo's great. Romo deserves it. Although Tony Romo in that Chiefs-Browns game, I watched the TV copy back on Game Pass just out of curiosity. The way that they freaked out about the defensive player for the Chiefs, for the Browns, shoving that Chiefs coach that shoved him first. No, and then ultimately getting ejected from the game because the player dared to push back the authority figure when the authority figure pushed him first, put hands on him first. The way that Tony Romo and Jim Nantz were clutching their pearls like a couple of, 85-year-old women in the booth, I thought was so stupid. No, look at the play. You, of all people, have all of the camera angles and all of the replayability. You just saw the coach shove him, and you're hammering the player because the player, God forbid the player do something like that in retaliation when the coach puts his hand on him first. But anyway, it's a conversation for another day. 615-737-1045 is the number. Did you watch the traditional broadcast last night, or was the Manning experience enough to lure you in and keep you? Because I don't necessarily know what the sample size was if my timeline, who I follow, is skewed by who would be paying attention to those kind of things, as opposed to the general population. I'm not advocating for it to be on big ESPN every Monday night because I don't think it's for everybody. But I think it's for enough people that the Manning brothers are likable enough across generations that the star-studded lineup of guest pop-ins that you have the ability to do because of Zoom and the way that virtual video stuff has kind of changed everything in broadcasting. I think more than anything, though, it was such a welcome experience for people who don't want what Tony Romo and Jim Nantz did, which is having the announcers basically set the theme of the game. And I don't like Sean McDonough does this too, and I've never done play-by-play, and I could never do play-by-play because I would be guilty of what we're talking about now, which is letting my opinion influence the call of the game, whereas Lucas could speak to this much better than I can. He does play-by-play in his spare time, what little of it he has. You are not, I don't know if there's like a handbook for play-by-play broadcasters, but you're not supposed to be opinionated as the play-by-play guy because it immediately colors the tenor of the broadcast. Jim Nantz and Tony Romo did that for me. Sean McDonough has done that before, and those are just the two examples I can remember off the top of my head. But with the Mannings, they're making jokes. They're making fun of Peyton Manning's big head. They're running through defensive formations and what Carr is doing to audible at the line of scrimmage and why he's adjusting the formation the way that he is. It was just so much more pure, right? It's not as rigid as the traditional broadcast is. And I've seen the rigid version. Like I understand, why people treat it the way that they do, but I also think it's okay to have Peyton and Eli chilling on a couch and interviewing Charles Barkley about who he bet on during the broadcast while not having somebody tell me that it's 2nd and 10. 615-737-1045. The Zone TV chat has been very vocal throughout the course of today's show. Tomahawk Chop 22 says, I watched the entire Manning broadcast. It was great TV. Cousin Hightower says he was half and half, ended up sacking out with the Mannings on, And for Mike Otto, he says, I will not watch the forehead freak and his apathetic brother under any circumstances. My God, Mike.
What did they do to you?
What happened there? Thank God it wasn't like a cuss word. I just Ron Burgundy the holy hell out of that. I didn't have time. I didn't have time to like proofread that. But he says, I will not watch the four-headed freak and his apathetic brother under any circumstance. Why?
Must be a Patriots fan. I don't know.
I guess. God almighty.
For what it's worth, too, I think I want to watch Eli's Places.
Oh, are they doing that with Eli, too?
Yeah, but they're doing it for college football. Peyton's Places is
just the NFL.
Yeah, just the NFL, iconic venues, stories, figures in NFL history. Eli's doing all of that, but in the college football world. And I binged Peyton's Places. It was fantastic. I think Eli's Places has potential, and he's got more of a personality than people give him credit for.
615-737-1045. He's definitely funny on social media. I don't necessarily. It translated to the broadcast. I thought Eli was great. He would not. It was little brother annoying big brother throughout the course of that game, and I really, really enjoyed it. And you could tell that Peyton he's not used to people trash talking him on national television that way. It was so much fun to watch. Mike Otto just says, I can't stand that guy. It's so funny. Who can't stand Peyton Manning? Brandon Rushing says Eli has a little gump to him. Yeah, but it's funny. He's clever. Don't let the facial expressions fool you. Like Eli Manning is quick-witted, even if what he's most famous for is David Tyree helmet catches and Manning face on the sideline. I don't know if that stuff becomes mainstream because what Just Saying on Twitter has tweeted us says, given the choice to listen to Steve Levy or the Manning brothers, give me Peyton and Eli every time. And I don't think that's an indictment of Steve or Lewis or Brian Griese. I just think that you have the ability to have more fun while watching a game. That's all I want. I want more fun. I can be informed whilst having more fun. That's what I experienced last night. I thought my enjoyment level of that game was amplified because of what the Manning brothers were doing, and to have Russell Wilson, an active NFL player, breaking down film with them in real time. I thought that was spectacular. And I can't remember who pointed it out on Twitter, but I did think it was funny that Russell Wilson spent all of the fourth quarter and overtime with the Manning brothers, and somebody tweeted out last night that he didn't seem in a terrible rush to go check out that Titans film for Sunday. Cheap shots. 615-737-1045 is the number. When we come back, we will do the polls, as is our custom. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
It's a college football Saturday doubleheader. First, kicking off at 11, it's the Vols hosting Tennessee Tech. Then at 6, Georgia clashes with South Carolina in an SEC Saturday night showdown. Coverage starts Saturday morning at 9:30 on your home for the Vols and SEC football. 104.5 The Zone.
How did your favorite school do this week? Don't miss any of the high school football action. Tune in to 104.5 The Zone every Wednesday at 9 p.m. for Tennessee Prep Weekly or at tnprepweekly.com and get up-to-date action on high school football across Tennessee. Join Chris Eakes as he breaks down all things high school football in Tennessee. With over 20 years experience, Chris has the pulse on everything from game plans to injury reports. Get the inside scoop on your hometown team every Wednesday night with Tennessee Prep Weekly.
Individual results may vary.
At LASIK MD Nashville, we invite you to see more and pay less. With LASIK starting at $490 per eye and the lowest price guaranteed, freedom from glasses and contacts has never been more affordable. LASIK MD is one of North America's leading LASIK providers, and Dr. Greenberg has performed over 80,000 procedures. That's experience you could trust. The LASIK procedure is quick and there is little downtime. Most patients are back in action within 24 hours, so you can be out on the town with clear
with reality. Now, Austin, also on YouTube, says, how can we get a 10, Spencer? Now, I love that he said we.
Yeah, me too.
Do you know how happy that makes me that he said we?
It is we.
No, I know. Listen, it's much less me. The only thing that's me on this show is the fact that my voice is the one that talks for the longest and that my name is on it. Everything else is everybody else. Like, it's guests, it's Lucas, it's callers, it's tweeters, it's people on Zone TV. Like, I play a very, very minimalistic role in my show because it's our show, and I love the we. Buckshot Carey says, Buck get a 6.5 today for suggesting a free promotion. What free promotion? What free promotion did I suggest? I don't recall. What are you going to do? Spencer says, but Austin, in response to Spencer, Spencer says that he does not give out perfect scores. Between a 9 and a 9.9 is attainable, but a 10 is off the table.
Okay. That's fair.
Well, don't tell us that. That way we keep, even if I get a 9.9, we continue to strive for the 10. Don't tell us that on the front end. All right, polls.
Oh, Nelly, this is Keith Jackson talking about college football. It's time to stop the count. The polls have closed, and the granddaddy of them all has been tallied with your poll update. Oh, Nelly, talking about Buck Reising Show producer and daily correspondent, Lucas Panzica.
Who won the football weekend? Puka says New Orleans may have found a QB. Ask me again in week 4. Ritnock says no one.
Yeah. Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston forever. Jameis Winston till the end of the time, and also the Miami Stadium cap.
Who lost the football weekend? Jared says, who do you think, Buck? You replied, said there's a difference between losing and getting your head caved in.
Yeah, that's in reference to the local professional football team getting their skulls cracked by Kyler Murray.
Grit says everyone.
Yes. Yeah, everyone? Everyone but the Titans? Anybody who bet the Cardinals.
We didn't even mention Manny Morgan says FSU and this guy with a link to the Florida State player that proposed on the field after the heartbreaking loss to Jacksonville.
You know what? I saw people ripping that kid across the internet. And what I will say to you is they play Louisville. Who else is on Florida State's schedule after this Jacksonville State loss? I know they play Louisville in the coming weeks.
Or Clemson will be coming up.
It's another ACC opponent for sure. I don't know if it's Clemson or not.
Miami at some point.
But he clearly thought they were going to be Jacksonville State.
Yeah.
So the family's probably there. Her family's probably there. Like, you can't reschedule it and try and bank on a win against it. You just lost to Jacksonville State, bro.
Yeah,
like, you're not, there's just not another opportunity. So what I'll say is that he's an easy target. And, it doesn't help that the optics of that picture are the fact that the Jacksonville State players are still on the field celebrating. They went on the road into, is it Doak Walker or Doak Campbell Stadium? I can't remember. But into Florida State Stadium and smacked him around. And then you have the optics of a lineman proposing to his girlfriend on the side. This is why stadium proposals should be outlawed. Game proposals should be outlawed. It's just... There's so many bad opportunities. I saw this happen at a Sounds game, and the girl said no. She said no. Like, what are you doing?
Don't propose in front of thousands of people unless you know damn well she's going to say yes.
And even then, don't do it. Like, it's just...
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's the cringiest proposal. I knew someone that proposed and got engaged at someone that went to Alabama at the Mercer game. How do you propose? Oh, he did it at the Mercer game.
That's right. Well, no, remember the 2019 opener for the Titans? The home opener? The Colts game where the field catches on fire?
Yes.
A couple got married at halftime of that atrocity.
Right. That's right.
Got married. I'm just sitting there, what the hell are you people doing? Like, I respect that you're a fan, even though I don't necessarily understand that mindset oftentimes. That is a level of extremism that I cannot support.
What was the better Monday Night Football broadcast? The Mannings or Levy, Greasy, and Riddick? Overwhelming 89% say the Mannings.
Yeah, I think that's probably skewed, but I mean, because they had a good broadcast on big ESPN. I just thought that the ESPN2, it was more my speed. Like, that's more what I'm looking for when I watch a football game.
What do we definitively know after week 1 in the NFL? Jason Fitz and Travis Haney just teaming up to dunk on you.
No, they ripped me.
Jason Fitz said that you need help picking your jacket/pants combos when you dress up like a big boy for game day.
I look great, by the way. He's full of bleep.
Travis said he looks like a crappy boxing promoter or someone who manages a teen rapper.
No, I saw Lebowski call me like a revival tent preacher, and that one made me laugh. That one fits.
Football and other F words. He looked like that was Lebowski.
Oh,
yes.
no. That's Zach Lyons. That's Zach
and then
Lyons.
Travis said, you never want to accidentally dress like the Dick in a Box guys. And Broadway Sports says, savaging this man.
Did
My
you say that
God.
with confidence?
Canadian Titan Elite says, life is better when it's football season.
That's true.
Nick said, after the dust settles from Sunday's games, Titans are in no worse shape than they were to start the game on Sunday.
Yeah.
And Titan Stan account says, we have to get rid of the ball faster. Can't be hanging out in the pocket all day.
Talking about Tannehill?
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, that is true. Ryan Tannehill, the protection sucked, but he did not help himself that much.
Did everyone enjoy watching Urban Meyer lose like that? Yes or no? 92% say yes. We didn't even mention the report by Dov Kleiman about Urban Meyer
It's the report from Jason LaConfora, which, again, like getting a report, citing a report, and I don't know Jason. I enjoy him as a guest on, I listen to 2 sports shows, okay? I listen to the Tony Kornheiser show, and I listen to the Dan Levitard show. Like, that's how I get my sports outside of local sports. And Kornheiser has LaConfora on regularly, and he's great as a radio guest. But when it comes to reporting, like, it's kind of like getting information from your crazy uncle on Facebook. Like, that's kind of what a Jason LaConfora report feels like. So, take it tongue-in-cheek. But what was the report, Lucas?
That Urban Meyer is unhinged, and people are looking over their shoulders in that building.
Yeah, and Urban Meyer should be looking over his shoulder because that player who's giving him the death stare in that screenshot that went viral over the weekend, that guy's coming for him in his sleep.
Did Aaron Rodgers throw that game against the Saints out of spite? 51% say no. It's close, though. 49% think he did.
I'm with the 49%. I'm convinced that Aaron Rodgers is sticking it to the Packers still by throwing. He threw 2 interceptions in like 3 series, whereas he threw 5 interceptions all of last season. It's crazy what I watched on Sunday.
Is there anything more fun in football than Pat Mahomes or Lamar Jackson trailing in a game? 50-50, yes and no, split even.
Oh, those people are homers, and they're biased because the Titans have lost at respective and also beaten the Ravens. And
Lamar was fun to watch last night.
Lamar was great, and so was Mahomes. So those the 50-50, the 50% of you, get over it. Stop being bitter. You're like Lucas and the tight ends in the offense yesterday. Stop it.
How long until Urban Meyer takes the USC job? Tomorrow, next week, next month, or the end of the season? 41% say end of season. 20% say tomorrow and next month. 19% say next week.
The proper answer is he already has it. That's why USC fired Clay Helton.
Pen to paper, baby.
I love that Jason Martin this morning asked Robert Mays of The Athletic if Urban Meyer would make it to the trade deadline. After one game, this is what we're talking about.
Everybody assumes it.
I mean, are those the polls?
Those are the polls.
Okay, very good. The Urban Meyer experience is doomed. I mean, and I kind of want it to last a little bit longer because the comedy to be found there is just exceptional. Chef's kiss. But I just don't think it's a marriage that is going forward into the future, which sucks because I want Trevor Lawrence to be good as a fan of football and not to be ruined like so many other quarterbacks have been before. What will not be ruined is your afternoon because Blaine and Mickey are coming your way next.
Witness the passion that unites us all.
Touchdown, Tennessee! Wow!
The Vols play here.
104.5 The Zone.